All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to Talkin' Investing. You're here with Tom and George. We got a lot to go through. We got some inflation numbers that came out today that I think kind of shocked the market. Although, again, a knee-jerk reaction in my opinion. I'll just give you that rate up front. Very red day for the Bitcoin miners. Bitcoin down a little bit, but we're going to talk about what's going on with these Bitcoin miners because there's a massive shift. There's a lot of news. A bunch of these companies came out with press releases this week, a few that we have been waiting for and talking about on this channel for a while. George, what's happening?
Tom, I've been in the market to buying ropes, a lot of ropes. People are buying about a lot of ropes. I don't know why, but you know, there's chaos, there's mass chaos going on in the financial markets right now. They don't know if it wants to go up or down. Crypto, is it dead, Tom? Because I'm thinking it's dead. And we got a month left of the first quarter. And man, we need to pull this thing out from a nosedive.
It's not going well. We're going to take a look at what Bitcoin's been doing. It's on a somewhat historic streak here. But the question is that I have been talking about. So for those of you who have been here all along, and for those of you who haven't, and for everybody, if you could take a moment and please smash the like button, hit the thumbs up. It helps us a lot live in real time. We've been talking about the fact that I think this is the crypto winter, and I'm going to show you several signals right now in today's stream that I think tend to indicate not only is this the crypto winter, but it's basically over. This looks like what the end of a crypto winter looks like to me. So we'll let you guys be the judge. And
isn't that crazy? Spin, second, serve. They put this as a like you couldn't show this message. You can't put a lipstick on a pig. I don't know. I've had a lot of dates like that.
That's funny that they got their algorithm on how they screen. Yeah, if you guys ever put a message up and there's no swear words or anything, we don't delete any messages.
I don't care if you swear.
We're
all big boys here.
I know, but they do. They automatically just delete it. And
Not saying you're big girls, but older.
So it's not us. I don't know. Have we ever deleted? I mean, there's something there. Yes. There could be something you could do that would be offensive enough to delete. But in general, yes, we are not deleting comments.
One guy I delete. I'll never forget him, and he's never been back, which is funny.
Well, he got the message. See somebody saying going to 72 next week and under 60 later. The bottom of the bear market is going to be in 2026 at 42K. So that is a very popular opinion. And it could be true. It doesn't look like that to me. I don't see it. So I understand what people are looking at. That would very much more mirror the amount of pullback, the time frame of what has been the previous bear market, well, crypto winters, really. I don't think we have, I've said at the beginning of this, thank you, Spin Second Serve, appreciate it. I don't think we're ever going to have a crypto winter again for Bitcoin. So it's an important distinction to make because the altcoins are having a crypto winter right now. They are blatantly, deeply in a crypto winter at this time. And I've said I think Bitcoin's going to live in a world where, the next couple of trips around are going to be more like a 40 or 45% pullback. Well, we already had a 52% pullback. So to me, that's already a little bit worse than I was expecting the bottom to be. But I do see so many bottoming signals that, okay, right, it turned out to be 52,000, not 40 or 45. That makes sense to me. Having said that, you guys know how this goes. Who knows? The other thing is, just because we're at the end of a crypto winter doesn't mean we're going to turn around and run straight up. I'll show you what's happened at the end of the last couple of crypto winters. So stay tuned. Dan, thank you for the super chat. Mara going into high performance computing to the moon. Thoughts, Tom? I thought about MicroStrategy or CleanSpark, but there are probably still plenty of upside with Mara. I will tell you, I talk about Mara a lot. It's a big position for me. It's my worst performing position in my entire portfolio. I have not given up on Mara, and I have been talking for how many streams in a row have I said they're radio silent? They're radio silent for 80 days. They're radio silent for 90 days. They're radio silent for, it's been over 100 days. And I said, they will put out a press release. And guess what? They did yesterday. 2, in fact. And on a day where everything was deeply red, Marathon was up 5.8%. And that is only because it absolutely crashed in the waning moments at the end of the day. This was up all morning, more like 15%. Had this been a decent day, we'll talk about PPI later. Had PPI not come out today, Marathon would have been up over 20% today, in my opinion. It was tracking towards that. It could have been even more than that. So instead, it was up about 6% on a day when everything else was down 5 or 6%. So it didn't get quite the bounce that it otherwise would have. This is not the greatest deal in the history of time, but it is a gigantic, gigantic step. And we'll go through, they were pretty generic about the deal, but they did give some specifics. It's another joint venture. I don't love these joint ventures. I understand it allows you to scale a lot faster, particularly the partner they picked seems like an outstanding partner to do what they want to do. But essentially what they said, and we'll read it in specific later, is they are shifting gears massively and as quickly as they possibly can to high-performance computing data centers. So that's kind of what, if anybody saw today's thumbnail or the description of today's video, these are, in my opinion, and I don't think the majority of the market has not figured this out yet. And I can see that through the price action. This list of stocks that we follow that we call Bitcoin miners are now data centers, power companies, and they are the sneaky play on AI. I think this is by far and there's a lot of different plays on AI. I like the picks and shovel type plays better than, specific programs. Some of these things, NVIDIA may continue to do great, but you know what? They're already up 10,000%. They're already the largest market cap in the history of any company in the world. So, for me, I missed NVIDIA. But these things haven't even gotten started, and they are now all building a considerable, they talked about 2.5 gigawatt pipeline of power, 1 gigawatt of what they called immediate, and that word is relative and it means something different to everybody, but they're talking about a gigawatt immediately ready to come online. To me, I'm going to interpret that as in 2026. So that's a gigantic, gigantic leap. Sour Melon Gaming says Mara's deal looks like absolute dog poop, and I'm sure they will find a way to lose a bunch of money on it too. Sour Melon Gaming. You got it. Well, you don't have to admit. I know that you are not a fan of Marathon. I know a lot of people are not a fan of Mara, mainly because if it's been in your portfolio for the last 2 years, it does not look good. And I dollar cost averaged in the entire way through. So I'm down still not 50% anymore after the last week, but I'm down over 40% in Marathon. And that's having dedicatedly dollar cost averaged in as it continued to collapse over the last 18 months. So It's a very frustrating stock to own. The last 100 days in a row of radio silence was particularly disturbing. This announcement came out on what I think is going to turn out to be the wrong day, although a lot of these, super short-term moves, the real proof is going to be, the market's going to be in a show-me situation with Marathon. They're going to want to see this stuff happen this year and come online. And Sour Melon Gaming saying Fred will reward himself a $10 million additional bonus. I know.
I know.
I know a lot of people are frustrated with not just Marathon's compensation, but a lot of the Bitcoin mining C-suite, does very well in proportion, maybe disproportionately to what their companies do compared to other companies in the market. But it is what it is. And with that said, a lot of their compensation is in stock. And I don't get too bent out of shape on stock compensation because, if your compensation is in Marathon stock, then you are highly motivated to make Marathon stock perform. And yes, they sell a little bit at a time, but if you look at how much they actually sell, Fred in particular, it's immaterial to him. So
I just smiled, Tom. I just smiled.
You did?
No, I just smile when you talk about these things.
Oh. I mean, I see somebody saying Morrow, in all caps, will not have a single GPU plugged in this year. Book it. If Mara doesn't have a single GPU plugged in the year 2026, then it is going to be a bad year for their stock. And I'm not saying that you're right, and I'm not saying that you're wrong. They just put out a press release that indicated completely to the contrary. Now, having said that, we know that back in 2022, Marathon basically fell off track by an entire year. They just lost a year in the middle. But they did ultimately get where they were going. So you got to look at both sides of that equation. Sarmel is telling Old Jock, out of respect for Tom and George, I'm restraining myself from using crazy language. I will officially, on your behalf, say I know that Sour Melon Gaming is on record that Marathon is not a good company, and he has no confidence in management or the company. And I see Adam saying no confidence in Mara CEO Fred Thiel, and I know it's a common sentiment, and I'm very tempted. Trust me, it's my worst performing stock. It's not like I'm sitting here, but I will tell you what I have been saying. It's my opinion that they can perform at a C or C minus level as a company. And I believe that that is all they need to do to at least double, and my target point is triple their current stock price. If they can be a C, that is asking very little. Now, there's years they haven't been a C. There's years they've been an F. So if they're an F in 2026, the stock is going to reflect that. But if they're a C, and if Bitcoin does what I think it's going to do in 2026,
what you think it's gonna do, please.
I think this is the bottom. I think we will be recovering throughout 2026. I do think we'll talk more later. I think there's more pain ahead. I think we've already put in a bottom. Could we candle wick down below this? Listen, you guys know anything's possible with Bitcoin. But when I walk you through my thesis, I have reason to believe that we've put in a bottom. But technical analysis is only one piece of a much larger puzzle. There's a lot of geopolitical things that go on that could, make a difference and change the game. We just got it. We got PPI data today that, the market had a mental meltdown. And I just will warn everybody. One data point, you know how many different inflation data points there are per month given out by the US government? In addition to that, they're continuously revised. And, you know, and that's just one data point of many data points. So to freak out about a number that looks to me like, you know, it was worse than expected. Again, we'll look at it in a little more detail, but it came in hot. It came in a little worse than expected. It looked like there was a little more inflation in January than we anticipated. Now, I will tell you, I know that a lot of tariffs kicked in on January 1st. And so maybe January was the month that we're going to feel a little bump and a little bit of pain. But I don't think that that is a sustained trajectory that we are now about to skyrocket into high inflation. There's just nothing that you can look at anywhere that is giving you that message. So, you know, one day
I don't agree with that one.
There's three or four, you know, there's 3 or 4 inflation numbers the US government puts out per month, 12 months a year, and then they revise them all every single month. So, you know, out of 50 or 60 numbers, if one of them wasn't what you hoped it was, that is not an all hope is lost scenario, right? It's not time to take out the lifeboats.
I think it's time to start getting a bucket and getting the water out of the lifeboats. I think that's where we're at, Tom.
You're in a much worse place than I am.
I think the boat is sinking, and I don't have a bucket. I have a paper cup to get the water out.
I'm going to start a quick poll. All right, simplest poll ever. Is the bottom in for Bitcoin? And I'm talking about in the year 2026. So we hit 60,000, almost to the dollar, almost to the penny. So is that the bottom, or are we going lower? Are things going to get worse? And then we'll start to talk about, are they going to get worse before they get better, or are they just going to get worse and then worse again? Right? Is this the beginning of a crypto winter? Is this the end of a crypto winter? Are we in the middle of a crypto winter? I will reiterate, and then we'll get into some detail. I just think we're at the end of a crypto winter, but I will caution the end of a crypto winter from the technical points that I'm going to point out. What has happened in the last 2 cycles, so that's the last 8 years, is, you know, some type of 5th or 6th or 7th month sideways consolidation before we really took the next big move up. So this is why I'm saying, like, I'm not putting mortgages on things and going all in because I'm calling a bottom. We can hang out at the bottom for a while, but we can all, I'll give you a,
for instance. Are you picking on me, Todd?
Right
on stream like that? I mean, you're like telling my playbook? I mean, oh my goodness.
What?
Because that's what I'm doing. It's almost identical to what I'm doing. And you're like, oh, I wouldn't go and get a mortgage. And then I'm like, what are you just repeating our conversation from earlier or something?
I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do. I'm just saying, just because I'm calling a bottom doesn't mean that every day from this day forward is some magical journey to, you know, infinity and beyond.
I mean, seriously. Oh, wow. That's funny. I'm beginning to think the bottom is not in for Bitcoin, Tom. I really think it's not. And it's not because I don't want it to be. I just feel that they can bring more pain. And this is the game. How much pain can we bring before we turn it around? Do I think it's going to turn around this year? Yes. Do I think there's more pain? A ton more. I do not think 60 holds.
So you're still in a tale of two halves of a year, and
we're gonna get information about the Clarity Act. It's gonna go up, it's gonna go down, it's gonna go left, right, who knows? And then I'm telling you, they're gonna freaking pull the rug. I mean, look at what they did to XRP. I mean, they're so good at this game. You have to be convicted in any altcoin or Bitcoin if you're going to stay in them.
There's no doubt. It's incredibly easy to lose. You know, I lose faith is the wrong term, maybe, but to lose your conviction or FOMO into something else and say, well, you know what, Bitcoin's taking forever anyway, so let me just go over here for a bit because I think this is going to be on fire, and then I'll get back to Bitcoin later because it's not going anywhere for now. And then, you know, maybe that works, or maybe you missed the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, thank God. Keep going. It's okay. I'm just reading what's going on in the chat. Sorry.
Didn't expect a Toy Story reference. Hey, but my kids are of that age where when they were little, that's what I had to watch again and again and again and again.
No, I think that, Tom, I mean, let's be realistic. I don't know why you would think the bottom is in on Bitcoin.
All
Honestly.
right.
I mean, I don't tell me your rationale. I mean, it looks like the same 4-year play is playing out the way it always does. And I don't know why you think that. And I mean, we talk about adoption, we talk about blah, blah, blah. But here's the only thing, Tom. No one's mining it anymore in the United States. It seems like everybody's turning their machines off.
Well, not everybody. And the global hash rate continues steady. It had one big adjustment downward. The very next adjustment was even bigger adjustment back up. So it seems to have peaked and stabilized a little bit, which the reality is the global hash rate is disproportionately high to the price of Bitcoin. This is some of the worst Bitcoin economics in the history of Bitcoin. So we really don't need the global hash rate to grow really for years. It will. It's going to. But if it didn't grow at all for the next 2 years, it would not make any difference at all. And there, you know, you still have your companies like BitDR. BitDR went from like 6 or 8 exahash to 60 something exahash in the last year, and they're going to go to 100. So, you know, for everyone that's turning their machines off, and we're going to talk about that because you're right, George. A lot of these companies are either scaling back or abandoning ship on mining Bitcoin. That will change if and when Bitcoin turns around. So that's always how it works. What's unusual really is that the hash rate, the global hash rate, has continued so vigorously up until the last 60 days. The growth in the global hash rate was inexplicable to me because the Bitcoin economics were bad before that, and they just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So it was outpacing the rate at which Bitcoin was growing, even when Bitcoin was on fire. So it's been tough to be a miner lately. Having said that, most of the publicly traded miners are cash flow positive, right? They spend a lot less in electricity than they get, even at Bitcoin 65,000. Now, that doesn't mean their company is profitable. It doesn't mean they're cash flow positive from operations, you know, because you've got overhead, et cetera. And then once you get to GAAP accounting, you've got depreciation, you've got write-downs if you've got Bitcoin on your balance sheet. So a lot of these financial statements were a catastrophe this time, but everybody saw that coming. We knew Bitcoin closed significantly lower at the end of last quarter than the previous quarter. So those companies that were hodling were going to have big write-downs, and they did. And most of the companies that mine Bitcoin, to your point, George, they had bad financials and nobody cared because what their financial statements reflected was their Bitcoin mining performance and what their CapEx is reflecting, what their conference calls are reflecting, and what their spending is reflecting is a shift to AI, high performance computing, data center, power acquisition, and the market is rewarding that. It doesn't look like it today, but you're going to see. Look at this red day. With Marathon notwithstanding, this day was horrendous. We've got Riot down 4.5%, Cleanspark down 4.5%, IREN down 7.5%, CIFR down 5%, TeraWolf down over 9%, BitDR 3%, Bitfarms 5.5%, HUT 3%, Hive 6%, Core Scientific 5%, ABTC 5.5%, Microstrategy almost 3%, which was basically on par with Bitcoin, so that makes sense. This was a terrible, terrible red day, yet you're going to see it was a green week for the Bitcoin miners, not for Bitcoin. So today was a little bit of a pullback down to earth on what was otherwise a week that was on fire. Sourmelon Gaming, the three miners that are on my, I'll say, shit list in no particular order are ABTC, Mara, and Bitfarms. All
there is no
garbage
such thing as Bitfarms.
companies.
Why do you make up things? There's no such company, Bitfarms.
Let's go. On that note, let's take a closer look. Bitfarms announces filing and mailing of materials for special meeting of shareholders to approve U.S. redomiciliation plan. So it is on. This is a virtual meeting on March 20th. They have already said they've recommended everybody vote yes on this. This is a done deal. They're going to be a U.S. company, and it looks like maybe April 1st. But to George's point, they're not going to be Bitfarms anymore. They're going to be Keel.
Keel.
I don't know what Keel is.
I don't know. Maybe we should call them Barf. Barf Farms.
That used to be their ticker, right? In their U.S. ticker when they were only listed in Canada. Keel. Maybe somebody knows what Keel is, but in any event, that they're rebranding. They are let's put it this way. There's enough people out there that think exactly like Sourmelon Gaming thinks that they are going to 100% disassociate themselves from the Bitfarms brand. They're moving to a new country, picking a new name. They're leaving Bitcoin mining, and this is going to be a pure play data center company. I think by the end of 2026, certainly before the next halving.
Tom, did you hear Trump talk about these AI companies, HPC mining company, whatever you want to call them, whatever the buzzword is now, that they're going to produce their own electric?
Well, and here's the thing. This is why I'm saying that these companies, and this is why I named the stream that today. These companies right here. So, on the private members only stream, we had a poll on whether or not Trump was going to mention Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. And
I couldn't believe it. They were right.
He did not. It was zero. But
right. And they said it. I was like, no, They got it, but you guys were right.
Yeah. Credit to the members. You guys voted zero and it was zero. But what he did talk about was just what you're talking about is all of this AI, because, that's the new, you guys remember as investors in Bitcoin mining companies, you remember the firestorm that came around. Oh, you're sucking energy. You're killing the earth.
Right,
so that was the narrative. Well, the reality was, and it took everybody a while to learn it, these guys have the cleanest energy of any industry in the world. And it's clean, it's cheap, it's flexible because they can turn it on and off whenever they want. They can support the grid. That's why these power companies, all of the companies he's talking about, are going to be leasing from these companies right here. This is what he was talking about in the State of the Union. He was talking about IREN, TeraWolf, CIFR, BitDR, RIOT, etc., etc. And now, look, just a few days after the State of the Union address, you've got Marathon coming out and saying, we're getting into a joint venture to get 2.5 gigawatts of power pipeline, which, just to put it in perspective, I draw the line. Riot has they built from scratch 2 facilities that total 1.7 gigawatts. Anything from 1.7 up to 4.5, all of those companies are going to be big players. And if they do it properly, they stand to win huge. And likely they're not done building out their pipeline. Now, the one company that claims a pipeline double or triple that I am skeptical of, what type of infrastructure is, what has to be done to it. HUT claims to have magnitudes larger amounts of power than even IREN, but IREN's worth 4 or 5 times as much as HUT. I still don't 100% understand what HUT is. I think that whatever they did the right thing. They're way up, and they're leaning into power, so they are a power company. That's the first thing that they said. They literally sold their Bitcoin mining portion of their company, so they are not Bitcoin miners at all anymore. Now, they are the major shareholder in ABTC, which is a pure play Bitcoin miner. So they're still affected by Bitcoin mining, but that company is leasing all of their power from HUT 8. So they're both a subsidiary and a customer. His Honor said the keel is the basic foundation of all boats. Thank you, His Honor. That makes sense.
I just find this whole thing interesting with because that's not what's going to happen. They're not going to be doing a diesel generator to power these things, are they? Because that's the whole narrative that I'm hearing.
Well, we know better. We're watching these financial statements. We see the power deals that they're doing. We look at the facilities that they're using. I can tell you this, on the list of publicly traded companies, once Marathon closed its coal mining facility in 2022, I don't think there's anybody that uses coal. So this is mostly, they look for renewable energy at the cheapest price possible. This is the only way to survive in either the Bitcoin mining business or the data center business. You need cheap energy, preferably in places where it's not needed elsewhere. If it is in places where it's needed elsewhere, this is where the Bitcoin miners are superior by far to the data centers. Even if they're all using clean energy and adding to the grid, Bitcoin can just turn their machines off in 1 second and throw all their energy into the grid on a cold day where the city needs that energy, or people's energy, people lose their power.
But I just don't think that's practical anymore, Tom. How are you going to have a data center that can do that?
This is what I'm saying. That's what differentiates the Bitcoin mining from the data centers. The data centers are not going to do that, which is why this administration was saying they're going to have to build their own infrastructure. They cannot leech off of our already insufficient grid. They need to provide their own infrastructure for power, and they need to add energy to the grid. So I think you're going to see incentives come along with building power. The AI right now is a big national security issue. So, you know, you can see it's in the news. They've been trying to negotiate their deal with, can't remember the name of the company, but the AI company who doesn't want to give them
all right, welcome to Talkin Investing.
access to let them use it for, you know, nefarious purposes. Let me just jump in. Frederick, member for 13 months, says, final note after being kicked from the Discord for saying Trump is the reason for Bitcoin bear market liberation day, 10 out of 10 truth, tariffs equals greater PPI, etc. I don't know who kicked you out of the... I don't know who did that. I
know who did.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, I as long as it's reasonable discourse, I think it should be.
I think that's. Well, I think what happens is with politics, we had to make a new channel just for politics in the Discord. We don't. Which is crazy is how active our Discord actually is.
Yeah. I understand if the philosophy is we're not going to talk politics, but, you know, to some extent, they're intertwined in a way that's unavoidable.
Yeah, they are.
But, you know, as long as there's no room for nastiness. But what you're saying, Frederick, seems more of an assessment than a slander to me. And people can agree with it or disagree with it, and that's what.
Yes, Discord's free.
That's literally what Discord is supposed to be all about. So
it's our name. It's under CUDAB, CUDAB, and then space Talking Investing. The same as the channel. I'll look into it, Frederick.
We'll get to the bottom of that. That should not be. But, you know, everybody should. If you're saying nasty, mean, horrible things, then that is not welcome. But if you're just voicing your opinion, that's what it's all about.
Okay, I'll look into it.
All right, so enough of that. Let's see. If you could do us a favor and smash the like button, George. I can't figure out how to find out how many likes we have anymore for some reason.
41. I think we might have went higher than that. Now we're at 46.
46. We're going for 100 likes in real time. Help us. Help the channel. Help people find these stocks, because it is obvious from the price action of these stocks, although they're starting to move, people haven't figured out a lot of these companies are ultimately going to be pure play AI pick and shovel stocks. And we know who always wins from the gold rush forward, right? That's a picks and shovels is a reference back to the gold rush. That's who. There may be other winners. There may be bigger winners, but there's lots of losers as well. You know, the gold rush is the ultimate example. Very few people actually struck gold in a meaningful way to where it changed their life. But every single person out there looking had a pick and a shovel. So that was your safe bet on making money. And that's what this is. These are data centers. These companies have spent, they were forced because of the heat they took on, well, two reasons. Economic reasons. It no longer became sustainable to lease out space from somebody else and have one or two or three middlemen in the middle of your profitability, because profitability got so tight, particularly during the crypto winter. So everybody got better at what they did. They vertically integrated. Some people did that from the start. Others had to learn the lesson and go from asset light, to borrow a term from Sour Melon Gaming's favorite company, to, vertically integrated. And, there are massive amount of steps to get to vertical integration. And most of these companies have achieved that. And in doing so, they've become anywhere from proficient to expert at building data centers. Now, all data centers are not the same, right? You can't just unplug an ASIC machine and plug in a high-performance computing machine. But you can build a data center for them, and that's what these companies are doing. And we're going to look at a bunch of companies who put out information this week about how they're switching, their focus from Bitcoin. And here's the thing. To me, this is what the good news is. They're going to get the bump from the top line on the growth on these companies is going to be so much bigger because of the revenue that comes in from the data centers. It's just, per megawatt, it's no contest. Now, depending on how you do it, it costs a lot more as well, but it's going to have more top line, more gross revenue, more net income, and it's diversified. It's diversified because unless you think that not only are we in a crypto winter, but it's the end of Bitcoin, these companies will make money mining Bitcoin. So I do not believe that no one's ever going to make money mining a Bitcoin again. That math isn't going to hold up forever. The people who are the best at it and the most efficient at it are going to stay in. The ones who aren't and are losing money are going to drop out.
Do you know who should be a big Bitcoin miner now?
Who?
And no one, we forgot about that. They said they were going to become one of the largest. Tether.
Well, they've bought a lot of Bitcoin and they've bought a lot of gold. So I didn't bring the last couple of weeks in a row. There was some articles. They're buying Bitcoin and they're buying gold in large proportions. Yeah, I don't know. That's a company that could become a Bitcoin miner. There's no shortage of Bitcoin miners. But here's the thing: you've got to be good at this. You've got to be efficient at mining. So your ASIC miners have to be efficient to begin with. So you have to have the latest and greatest. You have to have massive amount of uptime. You can't have, 10 or 15 or 20% downtime. So you've got to be good at maintaining and operating these data centers and keeping the uptime at a maximum level. You've got to have good power purchase agreements. And that's where getting vertically integrated, building your own power facilities comes in. Right? They're not leasing power. They are building and owning their own power facilities. So the vertical and Marathon on the other side took it all the way to vertically integrate themselves to have their own mining pool. So, there's a lot of components to that. And I do think that the winners are going to make a lot of money at this. And the ones who can't manage the math on that are going to pivot and they're going to build data centers. And then, yes, some of them are going to fail. Every company on this list is not going to the moon. That's just never how it works. This is an industry, in my opinion, that is going to be many, many magnitudes larger 5 years from now than it is today. And kind of not my opinion. We know the demand for the AI is out there, so it's well understood, right? This year alone, the large tech companies have allocated $650 billion in CapEx on AI infrastructure of all different kinds. So, not just renting data centers. But you're going to see the contract flow is starting to become more steady, and the infrastructure does take a while to build out. So a lot of these companies that came in late, and that's why Marathon, and I'm going to go to Marathon's statement. So let's see. First, we'll
By
look
the
at
way,
this.
Tom, I think in the next, what did I say, 90 days was the last time. So I said 90 days. I still think that in this last 90 days is when, Bitcoin will have an opportunity to get to a new low.
A new low.
But I think everything changes once we go back to more like a risk on assets.
Right. And this is why I think, so we'll get to the technical data reasons why I think that we are near the end of the crypto winter. But here's some of the economic reasons. And, today's inflation number is going to make some people think, oh, the Fed's never going to lower rates. They're going to raise rates. I submit to you, the Fed is going to lower rates, and they're going to do it beyond anything the market's pricing in right now. So if I'm wrong about that, I'm wrong. But that is my very strong belief. And by the way, with the data that came out today, you would think that we would have trended towards the Fed not lowering rates, but we didn't. So let me look at the CME Fed Watch tool. So yesterday there was a 4.5% chance that we were going to get a rate cut at the meeting. Today there's a 5.4% chance. Call it unchanged. The next meeting, yesterday there was a 17.7% chance. Today there's a 22% chance. So while a lot of the headlines said, oh, the market is building in the fact that the Fed's never going to lower rates, it's actually not true. It trickled in the right direction today. The Fed rate cuts became probabilistically higher today than they were yesterday. Even with this one bad reading. And so let's first, just to put everything in context, we got to look at the reading itself. So let me just get okay, so this is the PPI, the U.S. producer prices increased 0.5% month over month in January of 2026, following a downwardly revised 0.4 rise in December. So it was 0.4 in December. It's 0.5 now. Does that sound catastrophic to anybody? Because it doesn't to me. Now, consensus, we were expecting it to actually go down from 0.4 last month. We thought maybe it was going to go down to 0.3 this month, but it went up to 0.5. And core PPI, which is a ridiculous calculation, went up even worse. So I pay no attention to that. Because that's not how people live. You don't pick and choose the pieces that you're spending money on. And this is producers. So price of services increased 0.8%, the most since July, led by a 14.4% jump in margins for professional and commercial equipment wholesaling. I don't know why that is. So somebody tell me why that is, because that's what moved the needle. And do you think that's what's going to happen every month from now on? Or is there some more likely statistical blip that will iron itself out over time? Prices also increased for apparel, footwear, chemicals, bundled wired telecommunications, cross services, health, beauty, and optical goods retailing, food, and alcohol. On the other hand, prices for goods were down 0.3%. the largest fall since March of 2025, mainly due to a 5.5% drop in gasoline. Prices for chicken eggs, electric power, gas fuel, fresh fruits, melons, and ethanol also moved lower. So some good news, some bad news. Year on year.
It's just not true though. That's the problem. And it's just not.
Well, the gasoline is definitely true.
Oh, the gasoline is 100%. But Tom, I bought blueberries yesterday. I love my blueberries. They're the best. And I paid $7.99 for like a pound of blueberries.
Yeah, that's outrageous.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? I just think that's insane.
I know but that wasn't a January phenomenon.
No, that was a 4-year phenomenon. I mean, that was
right. So this is what I'm saying. We're
you
talking about month
down?
over month in January.
Oh, from December to
from
January?
December to January. So all the blueberries didn't explode in January of 2026. They exploded in April of 2022. And it's been getting worse ever since. That's just what happened. That's not a political statement. We'll look at CPI next and I'll show you. That's just what happened. Those are the actual.
Eggs are down a little bit. They are down a little bit. But I mean, we're in a spot where things are very expensive.
They are. And this is why I don't pay a lot of. This is where I started. This is one of so many different data points that, based on this, doesn't make any sense to me. First of all, we know these get revised time after time after time. Are they ever accurate at all is the other question. Take them with a grain of salt.
Brett, I actually agree with you. I'm not arguing. Tom's the one saying that. I think we're going lower in BTC. But you pop in here late. You didn't even hear me. I think, again, this is going to be the tale of 2 years. The first half and the second half. Did I lose you?
No, I'm just reading Brett saying these guys are going to be arguing if we're in a bull market all the way to the bottom. See you at 30K, sirs. So listen, Brett, if you're right, then you're right. If Bitcoin hits 30,000, then I am dead wrong.
But I don't
guess
even
what?
Be honest with you, I kind of hope it does.
I'm
just gonna back. Then you know what I'm gonna do, Tom? Is the same thing I'm doing already. Getting a mortgage.
I will. Here would be my advice to you: don't hold your breath waiting for Bitcoin 30,000. That's what I can tell you. All right, and I'm going to move to some of the reasons why, because everybody's saying, why? This looks just like the last cycle, which is what you were telling me, George. And that's the, you're not alone. That's what everybody's saying. Even some big names are saying, hey, look, this, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. This is close enough. This kind of looks like what's always happened every 4 years. But the reality is, it's not what's always happened. There have been many massive differences, and there are several upcoming catalysts. The reason I'm showing you the PPI data today is the market freaked out, but these are minor changes. And if I go, give me just a second. Right, we just got this data a little while ago. This was CPI. Right, so like I said, there's multiple inflation data points every single month. So just a few weeks ago, this came out. The annual inflation rate for the U.S. slowed to 2.4% in January of 2026, its lowest level since May, down from 2.7 in each of the previous 2 months, and below the forecasted 2.5. So CPI came in under for the same period of time. So look, I'm going to go to there's no data in October. There was a government shutdown. So for the first time, we actually have a blank in one of these months. But you can see we were as high as 3. And by the way, historically speaking, 3 is still less than the average for the last 50 years. So we've been brainwashed that 2, the Fed's target rate is 2. But we don't always get what we want. And the reality is over the last 50 years, we have not averaged 2. Not even close. It's more like 3.5. That doesn't mean we've never gotten to 2. We've actually gotten below 2. So it can happen, but it's not required. And I'm going to switch this to the 5-year. Now, here's the 5-year. Somebody tell me when inflation happened. By the way, these are the easy questions.
Do they get harder? Oh, and blueberries are in season right now. For Florida, at least.
For Florida. Getting warnings that our stream is buffering. Let me know in the chat if we're breaking up at all or if you guys can hear us okay.
Tom, breaking up is so hard to do.
It's breaking up is hard to do. I'm just, here's CPI data for the last 5 years. June of 2022. That's a problem. And the problem is, as you guys, most of you likely know, even when you get inflation down to 2%, which is the target rate, it doesn't undo the 9%. This is always cumulative. So we would need to have deflation to get back to where prices were. Right? But here, I mean, look, this has been years. This is 2.5 years ago. We were at 3.2. 2.4, 3.
I actually think those are more expensive than, I don't think those are right.
Well, but relative to this, do you think they're right or wrong? Because was inflation as bad in July? Was the incremental increase in prices as bad in 2024 as it was in 2022?
No, I mean, no, probably not.
No, it wasn't. And you're right. I disagree with every number on this page. They're all probably much higher than this. But I think in proportion to each other, this has been the trajectory that inflation has taken. It spiraled out of control. It remained there for a year. And we've kind of pulled down to now for 2.5 years. We've been in a fairly normal place. There's only 1 month on this 5-year chart that's below these numbers. And it's January of 2021. We're now in February of 2026. So that's the last time we were below any of these numbers. So inflation is not our crisis right now. We will get lower interest rates. We're already getting quantitative easing. And I think there's more of that to come. So these are the things that are in doubt. But when people put them in doubt for reasons like, oh, today's PPI number, to me, now I didn't buy anything today. I've had a buying strategy. I have made purchases this week. But I think you buy the dip when it's on knee-jerk reaction stuff like this. That's my opinion. Here, let me find this. So here's the reason I think we're at a bottom. This is the Crypto Fear and Greed Index since it came into existence in February of 2018. So it's now February of 2026. In that time, back in August, September of 2019, we hit 5 on the Fear and Greed Index, 0 being total fear, 100 being extreme greed. 5's the lowest number we've ever hit in the history of this index. We hit it once in September of 2019. Right here, and you can't see the exact number, in June of 2022. And remember, that was the bottom. But yet, we had to endure the Terra Luna situation, the FTX situation. So the bottom lingered. July, August, September, October, November, December. But starting in January of 2023, it was on, and it was on in a big way. We went into a massive bull market. So that's why I'm saying, is there 6 months of some sideways stuff? Is there something bad ahead? I think this one's set up a little different. I think instead of having a bunch of crises looming, we have a bunch of positive catalysts looming. So I don't think it's going to take as long to take off. But, you know, from these points, it did take a little while. These were the bottom. This 5 on the Fear and Greed Index and this 6 on the Fear and Greed Index, that was the bottom. It took a little while before, you know, we really got rolling. Well, I'm going to zoom in. So here we are again at 5 on the Fear and Greed Index, but I'm going to zoom in. Fresh and make sure we're getting the most recent information. So on February 12th, today's February 27th. On February 12th, we hit 5 on the Fear and Greed Index. That ties the most fear in the history of cryptocurrency. But guess what? We weren't done. On February 23rd, 11 days later, we hit 5 again. This is an extended period of extreme fear. This is what has happened. I just showed you the 8-year chart. This is what has happened at the bottom of every crypto winter. It's never been lower than 5. This is the bottom. This is the worst score in the history of the Fear and Greed Index. There is no score that is worse. There are theoretical scores that could be worse, but it has never happened.
Do they do a Fear and Greed for the stock market?
Yes.
Where is that in relative of everything else?
Let me press refresh and we'll look at the market. This is the CNN Market Fear and Greed Index. It just ticked into fear. It's at 43. You can see a week ago it was at 44. A month ago it was at 64 in greed. 1 year ago, this got down to 12. And that was a local bottom. And remember, we had a huge bull run after that. And by the way, this got down to 6. So there was, 1 year ago from this day, it was 12, but it got as low as 6. So we're hanging out at the top of anywhere from fear to neutral right now in the market. And remember, we're very near all-time highs. We had a bad day in the market today. We're a couple percent off of all-time highs. And you know what? Maybe we'll have a 5% pullback. Maybe we'll have a 10% pullback. None of those things are a catastrophe. But there's really no reason to believe, actually, that that's what comes next. Because here, this is what's happening right now. This is the all-time high for the S&P 500. That was January 28th. So we are now, after a very bad day today, we're now 1.7% off of the all-time high for the stock market. So it's not that gloomy. And Frederic is saying, yes, obviously, I think this was from Old Jock asking, PPI trending upward to 3.6. It's not trending up to 3.6. And that will not affect CPI in the coming months, question mark. And then Frederic is saying, yes, obviously PPI will affect CPI. Who would have thought that additional tax on U.S. consumers, tariffs would have any effect on prices? Okay, so we're going to see. We're going to see how this plays out. I think we had one number in the course of the last almost 3 years now. We had one number that was an anomaly, and it was a little bit worse than expected. Mostly we have been beating these numbers. Right. And I've been hearing that the sky is falling for 3 years. but it didn't happen. So I don't think it's going to happen. Now, you know, the tariff situation has changed again. The Supreme Court made a ruling that tariffs that aren't even allowed anymore, but there'll be an attempt at different tariffs. Ultimately, this is all short-term background noise, and I don't think it has long-term effect. Most of the major trading partners have made trading deals. They want to stick to those trading deals. Some have not yet. But we've been talking about a tidal wave of inflation since last April, but it didn't happen. So I know you're saying, well, now it's going to happen. Well, maybe. I don't know why now is different than before. But we'll have to wait and see. If it does happen, if there is a tidal wave of inflation due to tariffs, that's going to have a negative impact on Bitcoin. Absolutely. That's absolutely true.
Tom, we are up to 68,868 likes. Or 67.
67 likes. Do us a favor, smash the like button. Or I guess the dislike button if you don't like what we're doing here. But we would prefer you smash the like button if you would be so kind. All right, let's get back to, you know, we have to come up with a terminology because I keep wanting to call these the Bitcoin miners. And they are Bitcoin mining companies, but that is going to become less and less accurate of a descriptor. So, all right, let me show you we got so much left to go through. Let's get through some stuff. Okay, here's this week. So remember, I'm going to go back to it. Here's today. Other than Marathon, today was I don't want to call it a nightmare. Today was not good. Down anywhere from 4.5% to 9% across the board. Other than Marathon, which moved on news. But if you go to this week, so even with this horrible sell-off on Friday, here's what these companies, the Bitcoin miner data center companies, did this week. Every single one of them beat Bitcoin. Bitcoin was down 3% this week. From the close of the U.S. equity markets last Friday to the close today, Bitcoin was down 3%. Microstrategy, which I've included by popular demand, although they are neither a Bitcoin mining company nor a data center company. They are a Bitcoin treasury company. And they hold the most Bitcoin by far of any publicly traded company in the world. I mean, they hold more than 10 times the next closest holder of Bitcoin of any publicly traded company in the world. So we talk about them all the time, so I'm comparing them on the list. Microstrategy, Hut, and BitDR down 1% this week. Those were the losers. 1%. Marathon up 12% this week. And by the way, it was up a lot more than that this morning. So I think there's some more room to run on the news that came out with Marathon once people get over their little fit that they had because of PPI. Bitfarms up 8% this week. TeraWolf up 8% this week. CIFR up 6%. Remember, Bitcoin was down this week. CIFR up 6% this week. Several of these companies put out news. Actually, Marathon, Bitfarms, TeraWolf, and CIFR all put out news this week. And they all had a very good week compared to Bitcoin. So this was a good week. It was a bad day today. It's a sour note that the day of our actual stream here was a red day, but let's not lose sight of the fact that, you know, this was a great week. And for everybody saying Marathon's the worst company in history, they were up 12% this week. I understand. That does not make up for the year and a half that they have been grossly underperforming, both in my opinion as a company and objectively, as a stock, they are underperforming their peers, period. So I get it. And again, my threshold for Marathon is I do believe they will be a C- or better company. And that's all they have to do this year, in my opinion, to have a big correction back to a reversion back to the mean of where their stock belongs. Because if you look, their stock price does not make sense. Their market cap does not make sense versus the rest of their peers. Unless you truly believe that they are incapable of execution and that they will fail at everything they do. Even if they do all that, they have 53,000 Bitcoin. If Bitcoin runs, they're going up, even if they fail at everything else. So, by the way, Marathon has the second most Bitcoin on their balance sheet of any publicly traded company in the world. 53,000 at the end of the year. So, obviously that's a lot less than MicroStrategy, but it's a lot more than everybody else. So they have a lot of upside ahead if they do nothing but wait for Bitcoin to do better. They have now the second biggest fleet out of any Bitcoin miner that's publicly traded. They have been the biggest for years, but very quietly. And somebody asked me earlier, Pogo said, did anyone catch the BitDR dip? Yes, that is what I purchased this week. I bought more BitDR. I think they're giving BitDR away. That's my opinion. You got to go look at what they're doing. Do your due diligence. I would recommend people take a look at BitDR and see if it's something you're interested in, because I don't think people understand what that company is doing on all facets. First of all, they went from maybe the 11th or 12th biggest Bitcoin miner to the biggest Bitcoin miner this month. So that's number one. Number two, they make all their own machines, and their machines work well because they are mining proportionally the amount of Bitcoin that they should be mining given the amount of exahash that they have online. So they mined the most Bitcoin out of anybody, although most people did not give us their numbers. People have stopped recording their monthly numbers. In contrast to that, BitDR is giving us weekly updates. Here's what BitDR did last week. And we're going to talk about this first line in a minute. BitDR output 189.8. So essentially they mined 190 Bitcoin, not last month, last week. Now, here's the interesting part. Bitcoin sold 189.8. Net Bitcoin added negative 943.1. Bitcoin holdings 0. Over the last 2.5 months, BitDR has sold 100% of the Bitcoin that they were holding onto. That may cause people some concern, but I find that bizarre because in every other instance, let me read what they said first. This is from BitDR on the 23rd. Our decision to sell Bitcoin should not be a concern for the broader market. We are currently evaluating multiple non-binding powered land acquisition opportunities, and we believe it is prudent to prepare liquidity now. Our hash rate will continue to grow, and we will continue to mine more Bitcoin for the interest of our shareholders. So they're going to continue to grow their hash rate, even though they're already the largest publicly traded Bitcoin miner in the world, and they're freeing up cash. In addition to this, they raised about $400 million when it was all said and done with. And they're going to do some things with that. Some of it is debt refinancing. The rest is going to be building out their data centers for high performance computing. So here's a company that's taking action to move towards high performance computing. The rest of the companies that are doing this are getting rewarded. Their market caps are double or triple or quadruple BitDR's, despite the fact that in most measurable ways, BitDeer is a bigger company. So I think this company is underpriced. That's my opinion. You know, if you don't like what they're doing, the flip side of that is you go, wow, well, why did they wait until, you know, Bitcoin's bouncing off the bottom to sell all their Bitcoin? That's true. I would have preferred they would have sold it at 90,000 or 100,000. But the fact is they sold it because they probably have some announcements coming up on buying land. They have 1.6 gigawatts of active power right now and another 1.4 gigawatts of pipeline. That gets them to 3 gigawatts of power. That's in that sweet spot that I was talking about of the companies that I think will succeed. So I see this company doing everything right, yet their stock is taking a beating. And so we'll look at, first I'm going to go back to the last year. 2025. What was the worst stock out of all these last year? BitDeer, down 48%. By the way, it was pretty close because Marathon was down 46%. So,
isn't that crazy?
Yeah. This is what I'm saying. Marathon's been a bad stock for a long time. So I get it. I get people's frustration. For those of you who have thrown your hands up and said, you know what, I'm not waiting anymore. I've seen years of a failure to perform. I get it. I think if you do a deep enough dive into the actual equation of what's going on there, again, in my opinion, if they can be a C minus, they will double or triple their stock price. That's my opinion. If I'm wrong, well, I've already lost half the money I invested in Marathon. If I'm wrong, I guess I'll lose the other half. Can't win them all. I mean, at some point, if I see, you know, they just came out with this gigantic announcement. If, you know, by the middle of the year, nothing is happening, I will have to continue to evaluate, you know, every investment in my portfolio. So that's what I think, are all doing.
Well, it was funny in 2023, I asked you, what do you think the safest investment is?
And I probably said Marathon.
You said two stocks, Marathon and Cleanspark.
Yeah, well, Cleanspark hasn't worked out very well either.
You're right. And so I went in on those two for the safest. And that's been a sad mistake.
It has been, but there's also, it's been irrational activity. And nobody, you know, that's the piece of the puzzle. That's why time matters. If you're looking for a quick win, you might get one if you're trading around. Some people are better than that at others. Some people have more luck than others. Just is what it is. Marathon's headed in the wrong direction for a long time now. I would have been obviously much better off selling it 2 years ago and buying it, you know, yesterday. I'd be significantly ahead of where I am today, but that's not what happened. And I think it's been unfairly beaten down. It's shorted massively, and it's just been abused. Again, it's being abused as if its Bitcoin is worth nothing and operationally they run as an F. That's basically how Marathon is priced right now. Let's look at 2026. So they just got back to zero this week. So they had a big week this week, and that got them to zero, which is better than average for the Bitcoin miners. Bitcoin's down 25%. We just finished, this is the end of the second month of trading for stocks. Obviously, Bitcoin trades 24/7. But for our purposes, Bitcoin was down 25% so far year to date. And there's two that did worse than that. BitDeer, which is why I bought some more today. I loved their press releases. I think what they're doing is moving in the right direction fast. The market's disagreeing with me. They're getting wrecked. By the way, that's on top of BitDeer's down 31% in 2026. And remember, they were down 48% in 2025. So that's on top of that. This stock has gotten absolutely crushed. So I think the upside to this stock, these are very volatile stocks, right? We got to give our volatility talk. And those of you who have been here already know exactly what I'm talking about. If you happen to be here for the first time and these stocks are new to you, they are volatile. And when I say volatile, it's pretty much like nothing you've ever seen. And any one day can be treacherous, never mind weeks or months or sometimes even years. And, you know, these are boom or bust. We have in the past had, you know, we've had crypto summers where these stocks 50x. That's not hyperbole. Many of these stocks have greater than 50x'd more than once. But we have also had some of these stocks go down between 90 to 99% during the crypto winter. These are volatile stocks. That's just how it is. So you see horrible moves like this. But is this, you know, is this catching a falling knife on the way down to zero? Or is this a giant opportunity? Time will tell us the answer to that question. That's for each person, each investor to decide. But to me, with BitDR down 48% last year, it's down another 41% this year. I mean, that's in February. It's down year to date another 31%. I just feel like it's a buy, and I've been buying it. It's the only thing I'm buying right now. So I bought at the beginning of the month on February 5th, and I think that was the actual day. So if we go to the one-day chart, you'll see, talked about this before. This day, February 5th, from a dollar standpoint, this is the biggest red candle we've ever had in the history of Bitcoin. From a percentage standpoint, no, it was not the worst day. From a dollar standpoint, this is the worst red candle we've ever had. But that's okay because the next day was the biggest green candle we've ever had in the history of Bitcoin from a dollar standpoint. So, you know, this, and I'm going to add the volume here because you're going to see it's going to jump off the page. Look at this volume, right? You've got a massive push downside, a candle wick even further down. Like I said, this bounced off of 60,000 almost to the penny. It was $60,001.00. So somebody had the mother lode order in $1 above 60,000. Why? Because they didn't want to put it in at 60,000 and get beaten by everybody else. So they bumped it up $1. But this bounced off of 60,000 like a charm. And it's stayed significantly above that ever since. You can see we're trading in a little bit of a range. You know, this, I don't like to look at patterns. This looks like a lot of different things. But for the most part, to me, it looks like, you know, since we hit bottom, we're just kind of going sideways. We retested this line in a candle wick at 63,000. That held. We haven't been back there since. So structurally speaking, this is one of the reasons I believe this is a bottom. Sometimes it's certainly a local bottom, right? On double or triple the average daily volume on back-to-back days, gigantic candles. This is, if there was a picture of capitulation in the dictionary, this would be it. So I think, you know, that's one of the things that's giving me confidence in the short term. Now, we could retest this. That would be very common, right? We went down and tested a number. Retesting it is somewhat business as usual. So that would not shock me. But I do think this will end up looking like the bottom. And the other thing was, this is the 1 day. This is the daily RSI. So this was on February 5th. And if you remember, nothing in particular was happening on February 5th. Nothing that would make that the second lowest reading in the history of the daily RSI.
Well, we just don't know what it is. There is a reason.
Well, there's obviously there's a reason it happened. My point is, for most of us, this was just Thursday.
Are you going to talk about Jane Street?
We can. I'm not buying into the, I will just tell you, I'm not buying into the, I don't think it's anything that's moving markets or has any material impact going forward. But we can talk about that.
Do you think that it did happen?
It seems like it happened, yes. But I want to finish this point because
Sorry.
I'm not, no, that's okay. Okay, so on the daily time frame, that's the second. So if we go back in time, I mean, you got to go back in time. When have we ever hit this line? Got to keep going back. Going back. Boom. We tied this when? What happened on March 11th, 2020? Anybody remember March of 2020?
Yeah.
I don't remember 3 Thursdays ago. I don't remember that. And 5 years from now, nobody's going to look back at February 5th and go, remember that thing that happened? But we all know what happened in March of 2020. That's the last time the daily RSI got as low as it did on February 5th. So that was a tie. And then there was one time we actually got lower than that. And that was in the bear market, at the bottom of the bear market in November of 2018. So that's it. That's
FTX?
the list. No, FTX was 2022.
Oh, okay.
So even FTX. Here, this was FTX. Actually, you know, this was FTX. We did not get there. Now, we did have a monstrous, I mean, we had a monstrous pullback in Bitcoin. So, you know, that was brutal. But as far as being oversold, we still, even with that, we still weren't as oversold as we were a few Thursdays ago. That's on the 1 day time frame. If I go to 1 week, here, we'll just look at this. We got down to 26 on the 1 week RSI. June of 2022, remember, that was the bottom. We technically double bottomed in, this was the day we hit 5 on the fear and greed index, right here. And we hit it a couple of times back then, just like we hit it a couple of times back now. So the last time the fear and greed index was at 5, that's the last time the weekly RSI was where it's at today. And it actually was a little lower then. Then you got to go back. These yellow, or these green lines, by the way, are halvings. So that's, you know, 2022. That's another halving. So that's the list. That's it. One time in the history of Bitcoin have we been more oversold on the 1 week RSI. So when you guys ask me, like, why do you think we're bottoming out? It's not because I just wish we were or hope we were. I'm looking at historic oversold levels. Levels we've seen once or twice in the history of this asset. If you go to the 1 month, It's a little better. So if I draw the line where we just got up one time in the history of Bitcoin, FTX. This was FTX, December 2022. That is the only time in the history of Bitcoin that we were lower on the monthly RSI than we are right now. So is it more likely that we're going to go lower or that we're going to go higher from here? Understanding that in the history of this asset, we've only ever gone lower than this one time. What would this have to look like for Bitcoin to get to $30,000? Right? We would have to destroy the all-time most oversold we've ever been in the history of Bitcoin for that to happen. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at, now, is this a guarantee? It's not a guarantee. Who knows? Right? Maybe that does happen. Maybe tariffs spiral out of control. Maybe global conflicts escalate. Maybe inflation rises. We get no Fed rate cuts. Well, the economy tanks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know what the future holds, but I know in the past, if the past is any indication of the future, there have been one time ever in the history of ever that it's gotten worse than this. So that gives me a level of confidence. It's not absolute, right? No, we can't deal. This is the stock market. We can't deal in absolutes. All we can do is look at what's happened in context to what's happening now and what we think is going to happen going forward and take our best guess. That's how this works. But to me, those are some of the reasons I'm looking, going, are we really going to break every single oversold record in the history of Bitcoin right now in this run rate here? Is this the Bitcoin's worst moment in history? Is this worse than when the biggest player in the entire crypto universe went bankrupt and went to zero? And I mean, you remember the things that happened, right? No, we're in a different world. We're in the mass adoption world. Now we are, by every indication, people on both sides of the aisle in the United States are saying the Clarity Act is not a done deal, but they're knocking on the door. They expect it to be done in the next 45 days and passed. That's not a certainty, but boy, would that help if the Clarity Act passed. I think you can check that as a box, as a catalyst. So what if the Clarity Act passes 45 days from now? What if we get a new Fed chairman, 75 days from now? And then we start lowering interest rates. Because guess what? We're getting a new Fed chairman 75 days from now. So there's macro stuff happening. And don't be surprised, there's an election coming up in the United States in November. We tend to get some checks in the mail between February and Election Day. And those checks historically have created booms, if not bubbles, in the stock market. None of this is guaranteed. But these are all things that I'm looking at saying, for as much as this might look like it's mirroring past cycles, conditions on the ground are so dramatically different that it does not look like that to me. That's my line of reasoning.
Well, that's good. Here's my line of reasoning. You ready?
Ready.
Because we have a new competitor in the market. Do you know who that competitor is?
I'm going to guess AI.
No.
No.
It's no, it's not.
I mean, AI is what's next, but you're thinking of something different. What are you thinking?
You know who it is.
You're saying we have a new player in the Bitcoin universe.
Yes.
Now I know what you're saying.
I'm not saying his name. Bless you. But
I believe what makes sense to me based on upcoming catalysts, based on where we're at technically in the cycle. And by the way, if we go look, This was the double bottom where what was that entire ecosystem that had a algorithmic stable coin and it crashed and everything went to zero. So that happened. Luna. And then a month later, FTX evaporated. So we double bottomed right here. This was the end of crypto winter. And really, the bottom was here. But to my point, why I think this could last a while, from the bottom, we hung out for a while. So yeah, I suppose that could happen again. That's what tends to happen. But what happens after that? This is 376%. That's the worst one ever. Right, in the previous cycle, 1,359% moved to the upside. And you guys know the numbers. And the cycle before that, same thing, 1,300% move to the upside. So I don't think there's a 1,300% move to the upside ahead. But I do think there's either 100 or 150 or a 200% move to the upside over the next 12 to 18 months for Bitcoin. I think we're going to come out of this funk. And we've been in it for a bit now.
Since we're getting close, do you think the Epstein list has anything to do with the price action of Bitcoin?
I have two answers to that. No, I don't think so. But my second answer is it seems to have something to do with everything.
We're 80 likes, Tom. 80. So close, but yet so far.
80?
80.
Outrage. Do us a favor, smash the like button if you'd be so kind. We're still only at 80 likes.
No, I just think that it's like I said, this first half of the year is going to be different than the second half of the year.
I was
looking at mortgages and rates. I got quoted 5.5 for a 15-year for 400,000.
That's good.
I didn't think that's that bad.
No, it's not bad at all. And this is another thing we've become accustomed to because historically, that's actually phenomenal. It's just the last 20 years, we've been living in a different universe, and now they changed the game on us.
But guess what I'm going to do? I don't like the rate, but there is a you can loan your XRP. You can take a loan on your XRP.
Aha.
I just, because I gotta think if we're not at the bottom, we're really close.
Well, this is what we're going to ask right now. How low can we go? 60,000 was the bottom. So if you think that was it, you can pick that. If you don't, are we going to 50? Are we going to 40? Are we going to 30 or worse? A lot of people calling for that.
I think I think it's a psychological thing, and I think that's why we're going to just under 50,000.
You think
I think it's more of a psychological number, but I would still say, though, with what you're saying, that 60,000, that's very close to the bottom. What is it, from 50 to 60?
Yeah, listen, if we could,
4%,
and let me ask you this: do you think that we're gonna drop to 50 and hang there for weeks or months, or do you think we're gonna bounce off of it?
I think it's going to be I'll call it a pickleball, Tom, because the pickleballs don't move like a tennis ball. So I'm going to say it's going to be like a pickleball.
All
It's
right,
going to bounce up a little at a time.
a little at a time. So it's not going to be a candle wick down.
I'm not going to pick on pickleball people, but have you seen this pickleball?
I've seen pickleball. I've never played pickleball.
Have you actually seen an actual pickleball? The actual
I've never held. I've seen one. I've never held one or thrown one.
Do you know what it is?
What is it?
It's like, you know how you would train when you're a little kid and you're trained to play whatchamacallit?
Like wiffle ball?
Wiffle ball. It's a wiffle ball.
Yeah.
It's a wiffle ball. This is the funniest thing ever. You know how you used to play to train baseball when the kids were little? It's the same thing.
Sour Melon Gaming is saying, I really hate to say it, but I do think we're going to 50 to 55K.
See, he's with me. And he probably would agree with what I said about the psychology aspect of getting it to that 48. Just to, even for a second, then everybody on the media can say, Bitcoin's dead. It's at 49,700, 48,300. And they can sell the narrative, and then the bastards can come in. I won't use the word I want to use, but pillage the village and get it at a really low price and watch it go nuts, because it's going to go nuts.
We have somebody saying the masses expect lower, therefore it won't get lower.
I hope so.
Listen, I'm telling you what I think. I can't, there's no way I could come on here 60 days from now and be like, I am absolutely stunned we hit $50,000. There's, that's madness. That I mean, we just talked about volatility. This thing goes places in short time frames that maybe you don't expect. But even if it did do that, and I don't think it's going to, I do think it's all a part of the bottoming out process. And long before the end of this year, we're going to be running, in my opinion. Not walking, but running. Pogo said, I keep hearing about 53K. Didn't think we'd be here a few months back when we were over 100 and we were all dancing and laughing. Now I cry every day. LOL. Not kidding. Hut 8 is gold. It's gold, Jerry. This Ovaltine stuff. Let's talk about what some other people did some things here this week worth talking about. So let's just get through that real quick because we're running low. CIFR Digital provides fourth quarter and full year 2025 business update. There's really only one takeaway I want to talk about on this. So they put out their financial statements. I don't care what they look like. And the reason is they're rebranding to CIFR Digital to reflect strategic shift towards high performance computing. They divested. I'm going to go to another press release because it'll clear this up. Canaan acquires CIFR Mining's interest in multiple operational mining projects totaling 4.4 exahash in West Texas. So Canaan bought this, but guess what? CIFR sold it. They've had it. They're out of the mining. That doesn't take them down to zero, but I don't expect them to allocate resources to Bitcoin mining anymore. I think we're going to have three kinds of companies. Pure play Bitcoin miners, and I know that sounds unfathomable to most of you right now, but I do think we will have pure play Bitcoin miners. I think the thing we'll have the most of is hybrid companies. Companies that have the capacity to mine Bitcoin and have a second revenue stream that will probably bring more money in than the first, and that's data centers. So you'll have your hybrids, and then I think somewhere between a third and a half of these companies are going to abandon Bitcoin mining altogether, and they are going to be straight data center power company plays. I think CIFR falls into that category. I think TeraWolf falls into that category. Those who jump off the page at me. There may be others. I would say IREN falls into that category, but they're just so good at Bitcoin mining. I don't know why they would stop doing it, but they did run to 50 exahash and stop, right? They haven't added a Bitcoin mining machine in like a half a year or maybe a lot longer than that. And they have no plans to. So, meanwhile, IREN's worth significantly more than double the next closest company in this entire space of all the stocks that we look at. So their strategy has paid off. CIFR's following in their footsteps. They are rebranding. They are going towards high-performance computing. We should go back to Marathon because Marathon announces strategic partnership with Starwood to accelerate delivery of cutting-edge, hyperscale, enterprise, and AI-capable digital infrastructure. And I want to go to... Where is it? Here we go. To me, this is the heart of the matter. Together, the companies expect to deliver approximately 1 gigawatt of near-term IT capacity with a pathway to more than 2.5 gigawatts. 1 gigawatt of near-term. So somebody had said they think their best guess is they're going to have zero of that up and running by the end of 2026. Wouldn't be the first time Marathon missed by a year. I think they're going to execute better than that, and I'll give you the reason why. They picked a smart partner that, number one, is a finance company, so they've got the money to do it, and number two, they have a subsidiary that builds data centers, so they have the expertise to do it. That's why they partnered with these guys. So if this deal doesn't look as good as you think it should look, it's because Starwood brings a lot more to the table than Marathon does. But this does get Marathon. Marathon already has existing power that they can and intend to convert to high performance computing. So I do think, again, back to my C- theory, if Marathon can't figure out how to make this year at least a C-, then shame. Shame on them. My opinion. So we got CIFR switching gears. We got Marathon switching gears. Find or in this one. Again, I'm ignoring most of the financial statement information that came out, and so is the market, because all of this, or the vast majority of this, is Bitcoin economics. And I'm going through the companies that have said, we're switching gear. We're not about Bitcoin. So trying to judge them on how they did it mining Bitcoin is of very little use at this point. Here, both strategically located brownfield sites, increasing total platform capacity to approximately 2.9 gigawatts gross across 5 sites. This is TeraWolf. We keep seeing this number, 2.5 gigawatts, 2.9 gigawatts, 3 gigawatts, 4 plus gigawatts. That's where all these guys are going. That's scaling up to companies that can be, now, the stocks might not 10x, but I expect these market caps could easily 10x. They're going to have to do some debt. They may potentially have to do some at the market. By the way, I believe Marathon said in this past financials they just put out, this was the first quarter they did 0 at the market in the last like 2.5 years. So a lot of these companies are getting away from just straight up at the market offerings. They're doing either convertible debt or traditional debt, which in my opinion is much better.
Tom, I got to run. I'll see you guys. Thanks for watching.
All right.
Let's see. Hang on. Let's see. We're real close. 94.
We didn't get there.
94.
All right. Thank you, George.
Thanks. See you guys. Thank you very much.
I'm going to just end the poll and wrap it up as well. How low do we go? 40% of you think we're there. 60% of you think we're not. 38%, 50,000. 20%, 40,000. 3% think we're getting all the way down to $30,000. So I'm going to hope that 3% is wrong, but somebody thinks so, at least one person. So 60-40. Most of you think we're not done going down yet. We'll just take a look at the 15-minute chart. So we're hanging out at around just under 66,000 as we go into the weekend. As always, the weekend, the volume goes way down. All I ask of these weekends, I don't like Bitcoin to run up huge over the weekends, because that leaves us in a situation where it can tank on Monday and the equity stocks go down. So I would prefer some sideways activity, and let's have Bitcoin run again next week when the ETFs come back in, the institutional buyers come back in. So those are my thoughts. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Thank you guys so much for joining us on the live stream. For the members, we will see you guys Tuesday after the market closes. For everybody else, we're here every Friday after the market closes. Much appreciated, and have a great weekend.